Hello, guys, and welcome to Mr. Martin's Education Lab. This week, we're going to be talking about various apprenticeship programs and work experiences for like juniors and seniors in high school. Today, I got Norman and Tyler with me, who are students at Pawnee City Public Schools, and they wanted to kind of share their thoughts and such on an apprenticeship or a work experience. Now, have you guys had any kind of experience with apprenticeships or work experiences with school or not?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. That's fine. I know some places they have something set up where students are able to take like the last couple hours of their day and they're able to basically, like, if they have jobs, they can go and work at those jobs, and those jobs could potentially pay them or not, depending upon what they do or what they don't do. And so, would this be something you guys would like to see at schools or like in high schools and be able to have that option?
I think it'd be a good opportunity for students to get out and see what their job would actually be like, other than just working their summer job.
That also, it also gives more like work experience. It gives you more experience already before getting out and going out. And like you said, like if you just get summer experience, then you just have that experience. You don't really get much else throughout the year.
Yeah.
Plus, I think with some of the other things credits. Credits has always been a big thing. If you have enough credits for to like graduate, then you're always trying to find another class to fill in for those classes that you need to. And I think this would be really a great way for students to be able to get out and have like that secondary option. So instead of filling up a class that they don't need to graduate, then they can just use it as work experience and be able to go and do some stuff like that.
And I feel like if they do get that in place and they do decide to have this apprenticeship, the kids would know what their job would actually be like outside in the real world, what it'd be like. Because if you're stuck in a classroom all day, you can get prepared all you want for your job and for your life, but at the end of the day, you gotta see what your job will be like.
And find out if you really want to do that, or if you want to go down a different path and find a different job you want. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And people change their minds on what they want to do every day. I mean, you even have college students going to college for one thing. A couple of years later, they end up switching and go a different route. Do you think, like, if this was present at the high school, do you think there should be like any prerequisites or things students would have to do or have done prior to being able to be able to do this work experience program?
I guess, yeah. You kind of find what the job's doing, and like make sure they know what to do, kind of, and have records of classes to kind of educate. Like if it's ag, or go in a couple ag classes, or business, go in a couple business classes or something like that.
To get you to step in the direction so that you're not just going straight out into it. You have to prepare and work up to what you're doing. And ag's an easy instance because you have your ag class, and then you can go out and do whatever ag you wanted to go and do. But if it was like, dentist or something like that, it'd be a little bit trickier. But I feel like you could get like a pre-examination or like first steps into it before you go out there. But yeah, I feel like you have to get worked into it. You can't just go straight out there,
And taking those classes so you're safe and know kind of what to do on the job when you get there.
Absolutely.
You have to be taught right away.
And some of it you have to kind of be in compliance with several of like state laws and school laws and such about how many credits you have to take per semester in order for to graduate, and making sure you're within those bounds. Because you could probably have someone, let's say they want to do work experience, but they may be on the lower level of achieving. So like if they're down in a couple classes, that might be a hindrance to them, because if they're coming to school doing stuff but not doing everything they're supposed to be at school to be successful, to be able to get this part, to be able to accomplish this part and be able to move on to the next, it might be a hindrance too.
And we kind of had this talk earlier in homeroom. Your grades don't really define how you work. I mean, it does in some aspects, like if you're failing a whole bunch, and you're just not trying. But the real world work is, in my opinion, a lot different than in school because students get that feeling, when they're down, when they have a lot going on. Oh, I don't need this class. But then, if you have this in place, it can help bump up with their credits, and it'll also help them achieve what they want to outside. And it just gets them started earlier because when you go to college and you don't know what you're doing, then you always, like you said, you're changing majors or what you want to do. I think that this is a great step into getting kids to start
Absolutely.
progressing into college.
And really not snowballing, like start failing one and then pretty soon it's a couple and then all of a sudden you're down in all and you can't get back up from that.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta keep up on everything and not get behind.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a great point that for those that after high school they don't want to go to college and they want to go straight into the workforce and be able to start working, I think it would be a great opportunity for them to start getting some of that, a little bit of that seniority, like with the different places that they could work. I have someone I know that works at the county. They've been working there for since they were 20 years old, and so they've been doing really well with it. They loved it. They love it, like going out and doing all that kind of like construction type work, or being able to like go in, work on roads or whatever the case they have to work on, bridges or whatever, and he loves it. And so he loves going out and doing something. And I think a work experience, if he would have had that in high school, I think he would have really enjoyed that and been able to push for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there would be any kind of specific rules that we would have to have for if we were to allow students to be able to go out and do like work experience and such for that?
Well, just like having a job, you sometimes you get fired for slacking off. So basically, if they're gonna fire you, if you're an actual employee, you should probably not be out there harming other people or putting people in danger for that.
That's fair. That's fair. I think there should also be, if you're going to your job, you have to report into it. There has to be some kind of like reporting process, because otherwise you could have students come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to go do my work experience," and then end up like basically driving up and down the street, just wasting time and not where they're supposed to be.
No, I feel like you would have to log your hours, and I feel like if you did decide to put this in place, you would have to have the companies agree to, if this kid wants to go and work construction, you would have to have that company fill out something to get it into place saying, hey, they're logging their hours on this Wednesday at 2 o'clock until 3:40 or whatever. I feel like you'd have to get that set into place.
That's something that I think could be as easy as like a time clock. So like whenever you go in and you punch in for like your clock or whatever, you could easily keep that for that week, and then you can log it down like on basically like a Google Excel sheets or somewhere on there where you can be like, hey, they were here from this to this time. And I know some places they'll have teachers, like if they have like a study hall or so, or if they have the main teacher for that work experience, they could go around and like basically do like an unannounced visit and see if you're there. And so I know one place they do that, and they had it to where if the students weren't there and they weren't working, then that next day or that next week portion, they wouldn't be able to go out and go to work because they weren't where they were supposed to be. So they would have to stay at school.
Yeah. And and like let's say you showed up late, whatever, it's like an actual job where you have to show up on time, kind of like school. In classes, you get tardies, a certain amount, you can get deduct or whatever, and I think it's just a great opportunity for kids to learn how to get more responsible, because at school you'll get a detention, you'll have to sit for 30 minutes in class or whatever. It'll teach kids how to be more responsible and be more driven, I think, to get to things as students.
Especially I think for juniors and seniors when you start in like high school as well. You just want that independence. Like you've been dependent most like basically all of your life up until now. And then you start getting into high school where dependency becomes independency. And so I think having that work experience would be great for students to start becoming more independent on themselves. And so I really like how you kind of mentioned, what did you, like you mentioned something, I can't.
I talked about getting them into place, not just throwing them straight out there into the real world.
Yes.
Easy steps.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. That and like with employers too, getting a better relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so that kind of reminds me of a little bit about digital reputation. So like being able to do, being mindful to the potential impact factors of what we post online. So that could be something that is very important because you could be saying, like I said, like if someone says they're going to go to work, then next thing you know, they post on Snapchat, Facebook, X, or wherever that they're in a completely different place. And so I think that could have a big impact on, like we were talking about earlier with being honest, doing what you're doing, having that being independent and doing what you said you were going to do and being able to back that up.
That and like when you're on the job, you're not just taking Snapchats and stuff. You're actually working. You're not on your phone just standing around or
Absolutely
messing around. You're actually doing the job.
Absolutely, because there could have been an incident that you end up let's say like you take a picture and there was something inappropriate in the background. You post that, then everyone that sees that or is able to take a screenshot or screen record is able to then disperse that out, and then if it's something like bad, it's going to spread like gasoline that's lit on fire. It's just going to spread and it's going to go everywhere.
And it gives that company a bad reputation, and then it brings you down, and then that's kind of the downfall to it, is where if something bad would happen, then that kind of puts the company in a bad position, the student,
the school,
and then it kind of brings the school down. So I feel like you can't allow every single person, I think you have to have certain requirements, and I feel like you have to work those out in time. It's not going to be perfect on the first time. You have to get it worked into where if you have this certain amount of credits, and if you have the spare time during your schedule, if it works for that, you just have to have the requirements to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And back to like what I was talking about earlier, you're not throwing the kids out into the real world. Like, you go to high school and then you go to college and then you're just out, poof. You're on your own. And you kind of get that pre-step in college, but, some parents want their kids to just go out there, and I feel like this gives their student or their child, something to fall back on, where if it doesn't work out, you can come back to school and you can figure out, maybe this wasn't the job for me, and then find another one and kind of feel out what you want to do, and then you can figure out your major from there. And I think it's good that it's not just a senior's opportunity, that juniors, so that you have more time to, think of what I want to do, what school I want to apply for. I just think it's a great thing to open kids' minds to what they want to do. Because you have those kids, that come to school and they go home, and then, by the time they're seniors, they're like, well, I just went to school, I don't know what I want to do, and I think it gives them a good opportunity of what to do with that time.
Absolutely. And I think it also gives them a great stepping stone, too. So if you don't know what you want to do, if you don't really want to go to college, but you don't know what to do, it can help you at least get a job early and then be able to use that as that stepping stone to be able to move forward and get to where you want. I've known several people that have made a heck of a living being artists, but a lot of them they worked at like grocery stores or kind of like the lower end jobs that like kind of help them get by, but they also use that to be able to like have like be able to survive and then be able to use it as a source to make them be able to get time to do what they want to do and then help them get up and running with what they love and then kind of taking that next stepping away from that stone on and moving forward.
Yep, and like what I'm kind of thinking, if you do work and you get paid, like that would be nice. High school kids starting to make some money, but there again, you could have some kids that are getting paid and abusing it, not really working, or you could have some good kids that are working hard and not getting paid. So you just got to kind of see what you're working with before you can just pay them or not. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Which kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about was some good and bads about it. So with a work experience program for the schools, do you think like what are some pros and cons? Like let's start with pros. Like what are some great things we've already named? Students get experience. They become more independent,
Yeah,
and so
more-
being able.
More time, like clock in, clock out stuff, getting
Yes.
motion of having to be at work on time and stuff like that. And
Absolutely.
you had that with school too, but it's just kind of more on the job stuff.
Mhm.
And getting your hands dirty, actually getting to do the job you think you want to do or you want to do.
Yep, and it also helps with an accountability piece too. Being able to hold oneself accountable, being able to go there and do something like this. I think it also helps overall with, it can help overall with academics because then you have students going and getting the classes that are required to get done and that they want to do. And then if they are in their secondary of like high school, so like juniors, seniors, then they're not trying to take classes that are more filler classes that they may not have a lot of experience or they may not have a lot of they don't have a lot of passion for it, so then they may perform at a lower level but just wanting to get it done.
Yeah.
What do you guys think are some bad things about having this work experience?
Well, first you have to be old enough to drive, or you have to get to the job some way.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, the school probably wouldn't pay for that, you know what I mean? So you'd have to put in some hours driving and stuff. And
Absolutely, and that's why I think targeting juniors and seniors would be best for it, and this would be something freshmen and sophomores have something to look towards to getting up there to upperclassmen. Yes, something to strive to and get to. Correct.
And going as sophomores and freshmen, you're not at that maturity level yet. You're still kind of phasing up into the junior, into the senior, into the getting in more into the real world, not being as sheltered, as in like not having the work, having jobs, getting cash flow, stuff like that. And I feel like another con would be, if something were to happen, you just have the higher risk, because there could be anything that happens out there on the job that you're doing. I mean, even if you're working in a building, something could happen. The building could, I don't know, something could happen. You just have that more risk. That I feel like that's what's holding schools back.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of what we talked about earlier is when, if something were to happen with the kid, and then that makes, like the picture we were talking about, if you post something that doesn't represent the company well, then it comes back to, well, the company can go in and say, well, the student, and then the student can go, well, the school didn't prepare me. It just kind of layers down on everything that bad can happen. So I feel like that's the main con that's holding schools back from wanting to put this into their school classes or
that, and in a lot of places their insurance only cover 18 and up, you know what I mean, if you
Absolutely.
have them on the job doing something. So yeah, you have to find some something to back them up if something would happen and all that.
Mm-hmm. Almost like have to have a release form or something like that, or like a temporary insurance,
Yeah.
or something of sorts to be able to make sure everyone's covered. Well, I want to thank both you, Norman, and Tyler for joining me today in this discussion. For the podcast listeners, what are your thoughts on this? Should we have like a workplace or a work experience program for high school students so that they can get that work experience? Make sure to leave a comment about whatever your thoughts are. Join us next week. Next week we're going to be talking about another good topic. It's about a 5-day school week versus a 4-day school week. Thank you, and we can't wait for you to come back to listen.